additional difficulty of poor lighting in the room. In later years and in a more conducive research environment at the Special Collections of the Yale Divinity School Library, pouring through the reels of microfilm in the process of retrieving archival material turned out to be less laborious. However, it still required long stretches of time, a huge amount of energy and patience, as well as the discipline and determination not to give up, even when my neck was stiff and I had gone through a whole reel of microfilm and found nothing related to my subject. Back in Ghana, transcription and word processing of the reports proved equally tasking, as I contended with faint, faded, darkened, and sometimes missing pages in the original microfilmed documents. Archival resources, church records. By church records, I mean chronicles, session minutes, baptismal marriage, and death registers. It was important to determine the scope and time frame of the archives I wanted. For instance, I started from 1842, the year of Opoku's birth, to 1915, 2 years after he died. This saved me precious time from having to sift through irrelevant records. I discovered during my visits to the former Basel Mission churches that many of the archival materials, or what they called old books, had been discarded or destroyed. One such old book, salvaged from a trash pile at the PCG Emmanuel congregation in Mampo, Ekwapim, was a church session minutes book dating back to the late 1890s. It covered Opoku's time as pastor at Manfi, when he also had supervisory oversight of the Mampo station. It would have been interesting to study those minutes to discover the decision-making process under his leadership and how matters and disputes brought before the session were settled. Unfortunately, many of the relevant pages were missing. Library resources. Secondary sources served to corroborate information gleaned from Theophilus Opoku's own writings. Research in the Zimmerman Library at ACI yielded good results, such as H.J. Keteku's brief biographical sketch of Theophilus Opoku and David Asante. Other resources include J.B. Danker's The Achim Ebuakwa Handbook, David Brockenshaw's edited Akwapim Handbook, documents on the Presbyterian Church of the Gold Coast, Paul Jenkins's abstracts of Basel Mission Gold Coast correspondence, studies on the slave trade, both domestic and transatlantic, books on Ghana history and geography, and so on. I also borrowed books and documents from the personal libraries of senior colleagues. Just as I scheduled research visits to the YDS Special Collections every time I traveled to USA, I also arranged to use libraries located in the cities I visited. F. Internet resources. Internet sources are helpful to verify and corroborate secondary sources. They must, however, be used with caution, as much as information on the World Wide Web is spurious. For instance, the information on Theophilus Opoku in one web resource I consulted turned out to have a wrong birth year for him. I had to cross-check this date with his family. Fortunately, I later found his biography stating the correct date. It was the same one the family had always stated. G. Auxiliary sciences. Restricting oneself to one's field of study and considering any foray into other subject areas a waste of precious time is not only parochial, but may actually limit the potential of the research and detract from its richness. Professor Andrew Walsh's advice to research students is to be inquisitive, humble, and open to learning from other fields of inquiry. I can attest to the wisdom in Professor Wals's caution. Early on in my research, I realized that I needed sometimes to go into seemingly disparate fields. I could not discount the potential of finding corroborating material outside the field of my research focus because of the inextricability of the information emerging from the archival sources. This nature of research, therefore, required my close reading of archival resources to unearth the trove of hidden information, which Arthur Marrick calls the unwitting testimony, because it provides clues from and links to other sources and richer insights. I have a few examples from researching the life of Theophilus Opoku. 1. Historical facts and phenomena. A total eclipse of the moon occurred on February the 27th, 1877. As both a geographical and historical fact, this was recorded and therefore verifiable. The smallpox epidemics in the 1870s were equally recorded facts in history. Opoku referenced both phenomena in the relevant reports as they affected his work for the Basel mission. 2. World and general church history and the history of Christianity. World events intersected with the history of Christianity and the evangelical missionary movement of the mid to late 19th century in Africa and other southern continents. This historical context provided the environment for much of the work of the Basel mission in its mission fields in India and Africa. 3. Advances in Western medicine. Just as the coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic spread globally from China in the first quarter of 2020, an outbreak of the smallpox contagion spread through the world in the 19th century. Opoku's reports in 1874 and 1876 lamented the many deaths among his Manfi congregation and the families devastated by the disease. When in 1877 he himself contracted smallpox in Salaga, he miraculously recovered after taking some pills. His 1878 report suggests that the Basel mission had possibly procured the antidote for its European missionaries in the Gold Coast. This would explain why he had the pills in his possession. 4. Slavery and slave trading, domestic and transatlantic. One major international historical activity occurring at the time was slave trading, both domestic and transatlantic. Even though the transatlantic slave trade had been abolished in 1807, domestic slavery and slave trading still persisted within the various territories. Opoku noted caravans of hundreds of slaves arriving in Salaga in 1877. The town still functioned as an important slave market and the hub of a huge traffic in slaves and other slave-related commerce. Apart from the religious, socio-cultural, and political influences imported by the traders, clerics, and migrants into and through Salaga, the histories of other regions such as the Borno of northeast Nigeria, Timbuktu, now modern Mali, and today's southeastern Nigeria moved with the human traffic into the northern territories of 19th century Gold Coast. The resultant prolonged traffic and migration of displaced peoples may not have received the deserved scholarly attention. Feeding into that persistent trade in slaves were interethnic wars and the hostilities of the Asante against the surrounding ethnic groups. By 1877, the British had broken the former Asante hegemony over the northern regions in the famous Anglo-Asante War of 1874. Emboldened by their newfound freedom from the Asante overlords, the former vassal states took advantage of the weakened Asante hold to also weigh into the slave trade to reap their share of the benefits. 5. Accounts of explorers, travelers, and missionaries. I found some historical details also in the records of explorers and travelers. One such helpful resource was Marion Johnson's Salaga Reports, a collection of reports of missionaries, oral traditions of the indigenous people, and archaeological findings on Salaga from the 18th to 20th centuries. 6. Geography, physical, political, and social. Geographical evidence also provided verifiable data to corroborate elements in Opoku's reports, such as the lunar eclipse of 1877, which Opoku observed during his trek to Salaga. A study of 19th century maps of the Gold Coast and maps of modern Ghana revealed differences in topography, the nature of the vegetation then and now, as well as changing climatic patterns. An important fact of the political geography at the time of Opoku's report was that British colonialists governed Lagos and Accra as one administrative territory. In fact, most of West Africa was considered one continuous territory, with the slave coast extending from the southeast of present-day Nigeria to the coast of Accra, Winneba, and Edina, Elmina. The frequent border closures and harsh immigration policies between neighboring states of the sub-region in our time belie this fact. 7. Emerging religions: Christianity, Islam, and African traditional religions. Inseparable from the booming transnational slave trade was the concomitant spread of Islam. By the 1870s, Islam was already making inroads into North Africa through the trade of crops, religious migration, and the traffic of slaves. The references to Islam, particularly in Opoku's 1878 annual report, are not only related to the commercial aspects of life in Salaga, with the slave caravans and markets Opoku witnessed. From his temporary lodging with his host, he also observed Muslim beliefs and practices, architecture, family arrangements, cultural activities, and attitudes. His conversation with the Muslims on matters of faith, marriage, and holy living highlighted some important concerns of his Muslim listeners and provided an opportunity for the Christian Gospel's engagement with Muslim beliefs and culture. Opoku's reports recount his confrontations with the traditional religionists, the priesthood of the traditional deities, and his benighted countrymen, thus mirroring the religious antagonisms in mid to late 19th century Gold Coast. 8. Background context: culture and traditions of Opoku's Akan people. In his engagement with the traditionalists or heathen, traditional priesthood, Muslims and Christians, Opoku had to carefully negotiate the intricate relationships between the religions, cultural beliefs and practices, as well as entrenched attitudes and fierce opposition to his person and his ministry. Working with the archival materials required that I acquaint myself with the tenets of Akan culture, traditions, and religion. It was crucial that I discern the underlying subtexts. Moreover, I was concerned about reading the reports right and accurately interpreting the reported events, responses, and attitudes. This is what Walls and other interpreters of archival documents would refer to as wearing the lens of the period we study in order to be fair to its times and people. Beyond the knowledge of English terms, this also entailed an awareness of the West's Enlightenment perceptions of Africa at the time. 9. Photographs and memorabilia. The photographs of Theophilus Opoku that are used in his biography were obtained from his descendants, notably Professors Kofi Asare Opoku and Henry Niajiri Wellington. In a later book, I reproduced the same photographs but added a couple that I received from Madame Gladys Kwapon, the granddaughter of Theophilus Opoku, through his first wife, Sophia Nyam. I took quite a few photographs myself. Nevertheless, I still had to decide what photographs to use, as I did not want to fill the biography with colorful photographs that would simply entertain without really enriching the narrative. 10. Opoku's self-history or autobiography. Most of the information I used was distilled from the primary material of Theophilus Opoku's handwritten reports, microfilmed and preserved in the special collections at the YDS Library. They provided details about his personhood, namely his spirituality, approach in dealing with various church matters, confrontation with the traditional priesthood in the areas where he served and lived, his response to the traditional beliefs of his people, his challenges and personal difficulties, but also his personal joys and victories, relationships with God, the Basel Mission authorities, and colleagues. From the various reports, it was also possible to identify Opoku's own fears and discover how he dealt with them. Other details of his work include names of the places he was posted to, the welcome or opposition of the people there, the kind of spiritual terrain he found at each mission station, the conversions and disappointments in the ministry, and so much more. 11. Influences in Opoku's life. Other trends apart from the evangelical movement connected the Basel Mission to the history of Christian Europe in the 18th and 19th centuries. Two important ones were the Enlightenment movement in the 18th century and the counter-movement of Puritanism. The latter's pietistic teaching of holiness and past living infiltrated into Europe's educational and religious systems and through missionary organizations like the Basel Mission. Thus, Opoku's training in the Akrofi seminaries was mediated through both the subjects taught there and the views of the European teachers. For example, the Enlightenment concept of Africa and the southern non-Western continent as the dark world of the heathens was reflected in Opoku's language in his reports and in his ardent desire to Christianize his benighted countrymen. Similarly, the 19th century Puritan piety of the pietistic radical Christians was bequeathed to the students of the Basel mission schools and seminaries in the Gold Coast. In this way, they indirectly imbibed the ethos and vision of the European origins of the mission organization. 12. Opoku's self-knowledge. Opoku's reports show that, in addition to his mastery of the English language, proficiency in German and Twi, elements from Opoku's Akan family background and heritage, as well as the nature of his relationships with other people, are evident in his self-description and his outlook on the traditional perceptions he worked hard to counter in his ministry. His spirituality and faith are revealed in the citations of Bible verses and use of biblical metaphors. Similarly, his mastery of the art of argumentation in the Socratic dialogical method he employed in his conversations with the traditionalists, the priesthood, the ordinary people, and the Christians demonstrated his personal example of practical Christian discipleship. Challenges and limitations. Lest I give the impression that it was an altogether smooth ride, I would like to share some of the challenges and limitations I encountered in my research. The first one was time. Time was both a challenge and a limitation. I've already alluded to the MA Theology admission program of the Institute in 2009, for which my biography of Theophilus Opoku was originally written as a project essay. The module allowed 4 weeks for writing and submission. The additional pressure of producing a convincing biography compounded the particularly constricted time frame. Having completed the program, however, I forgot all about the essay for 5 years before publishing it in 2014. I've already mentioned the research strategy I was forced to adopt to fit in time at the YDS Special Collections during conference visits to USA. Also, retrieval and transcription of the archival material were laborious, long, and physically demanding. In my later research, visits to PCG churches took several months, sometimes requiring that I go back to a particular church if the principal host had been absent the first time. A second challenge and limitation was the scope. Two important questions help define the scope of a biography. How much of the subject's life should it cover? And what nature of biography should it be? Intellectual, professional, or spiritual pilgrimage? In a sense, I consider my biography of Theophilus Opoku to be incomplete because of certain missing elements, such as an analysis of his writings in Twi and German, as well as the personal interviews of his descendants. Because I did not set out primarily to write a comprehensive biography of Theophilus Opoku, the omission of interviews of his living descendants did not detract from the essence of his story, although their recollections might have enriched Opoku's profile. Many personal details were absent. For instance, the archival sources did not include the texts of the sermons Opoku referred to in the reports. Nor did I find much information in the reports about his second marriage to Mary Engman. Notwithstanding the note of bereavement in the beginning of his 1878 report following the death of Opoku's first wife, Sophia Nyam, I did not find much else about her in other reports that I accessed. Since the reports represented official correspondence with the Basel Mission leadership, it is understandable that he chose to report strictly business while being discreet about personal matters. Another challenge was language. It also proved to be a limitation. The sociocultural and political influences accompanying Islam in the Northern Territories in the 19th century included the predominance of Hausa, both as the language of the lucrative commerce in slaves and as the vehicle of Islamic culture from places as far-flung as Timbuktu, modern Mali, and Borno, present-day northeastern Nigeria. Further research into this aspect of Opoku's life may require a level of proficiency in Hausa and Dagbani. I was unable to access Opoku's writings in Twi and German, I've already mentioned. Not being a Twi speaker, for my visits to the Basel churches in Ekwapim and Kweru presbyteries, as well as the visit to Salaga, I was, however, fortunate to have a research assistant who was both a professional Twi instructor and a sub-chief well-versed in Akan culture and well-traveled around Ghana. I face also the challenge of factual fidelity. A convincing biography should show both sides of the subject without necessarily denigrating the negative character traits or exaggerating the positive personal qualities. Thus, in researching the life of Theophilus Opoku, I deliberately chose, as far as possible, to let him narrate his story in his own words. My annotations simply provide the links to other corroborating sources and invite the reader to follow Opoku's reasoning to understand his various decisions and actions. A fifth challenge I found in the potential drawback in writing a biography. The importance of doing careful research when working from primary source documents cannot be overemphasized. This calls for discernment to avoid repeating or adding fuel to rumors, myths, or supposed legends that detracts from the integrity of the subject's character, or which embellish an otherwise negative trait. So far, I have not had any negative feedback on the material I have published on Theophilus Opoku on account of sensitive information about him. However, at the reception that followed the Thanksgiving service to celebrate the centenary of Theophilus Opoku's death in July 2013, one of the descendants confronted me as I offered her copies of my book for purchase. She accused me of taking advantage of their ancestors' fame to make some money for myself. Quickly countering, I pointed out to her that his fame meant nothing if people beyond his immediate family had never heard of him or read about him. And as long as people did not know about him and his achievements, he could not be described as famous. If anything, I was rather doing the Opoku Asifo a big favor by helping to make him known. Despite those objectionable remarks, in 2016, when I was visiting the various churches where Opoku had served, I made a decision to interview this descendant. It was unbelievable. Either she had completely forgotten her previous remarks to me, had mellowed with age, or had eventually come to see the value of my research on her grandfather. She was very welcoming and showed me some photographs, which I included in my third book. Benefits of writing a biography. There are benefits. The first one is the recovery of memory and giving honor to whom honor is due. Biographies are a way of recovering the memory of a people, a community, or a family. People can be honored posthumously because some new information is discovered about them. Similarly, when descendants are acquainted or reconnected with their notable ancestors, the experience can be very liberating. I have seen this happen with Theophilus Opoku's descendants. The Ebusuapenyi of Opoku Asifo, Professor Kofi Asare Opoku, a grandson, made my first publication on Opoku a must-read for all the Opoku descendants, particularly the young ones, many of whom in 2013 had never even heard of Theophilus Opoku. According to Professor Asare Opoku, my writing on Opoku had brought him back to life. Professor Henry Niajuri Wellington, a great-grandson, expressed his renewed sense of pride in knowing more about his illustrious progenitor. I am amazed at how an incidental research discovery has had such far-reaching outcomes in many lives. A second benefit is the originality of research. The absence of extraneous commentaries and perspectives in the original primary sources meant that I had to analyze and interpret the material myself to arrive at my own original reflections. This creative process has enabled me to contribute something new to the existing knowledge about Theophilus Opoku. The wealth of information in the archival material made it possible for me to focus on more than one aspect of Opoku's biography. In other words, using the same annual reports, I have been able to write about Theophilus Opoku's mission and ministry, his life story as an indigenous pastor and missionary theologian, his famous journey to Salaga, as well as his style of leadership. A third benefit comes from travel and discovery. Even though travel was incidental to my research on Theophilus Opoku, it provided opportunities for me to reinforce or refute cultural elements described in the primary source documents. This was particularly true for the research for my third book on Opoku. For instance, in his 1878 report, Opoku meticulously described his Muslim host house in Salaga. Its conical shape depicted typical Gonja traditional architecture. During my research visit to Salaga in 2016, I observed a number of houses built in that old style in existence, still in the town. In a few places, both the ancient conical and modern rectangular square houses stood side by side in the same compound. A fourth benefit is the personal edification. I have been personally touched by and continue to be thankful for the deep appreciation and gratitude expressed by the extended family of Theophilus Opoku since that first publication in 2013, at the dedication of my third book, By Foot to Salaga, Theophilus Opoku's Diary of a Momentous Journey, 1877. In October 2018, I was officially adopted into the Opoku extended family, as the Opoku Asifo, with a new name, Ohiniwa Opoku. I conclude now. A rewarding research experience. The science of archival research and reconstruction is gratifying. It was fascinating to read Theophilus Opoku's first-hand and handwritten accounts and observations, his reflections, prayers, extrapolations, personal difficulties and challenges, fears, joys, continual thanksgiving for health and gratitude to God for the few conversions and for the occasions when his countrymen came to eureka moments about the deception of the traditional priesthood. Being able to verify and corroborate this information from other sources from the same time period made the experience all the more exciting for me. Indeed, researching and writing Opoku's biography has been a personally rewarding experience. I consider it a privilege to have facilitated the knowledge of as yet unknown traits of Opoku's character, as well as previously ignored aspects of his mission and achievements in the sociocultural, political, and religious spheres of 19th century Gold Coast. Writing a convincing biography is like introducing and making a person known to another, to the point of their being recognizably real in the reader's experience. If that has happened with the descendants of Theophilus Opoku, then the research was worthwhile. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. That treat on Reverend Theophilus Opoku, insights from researching the life of Theophilus Opoku. or expanding the general theme biography and the science of archival reconstruction. And so we will open the floor for clarifications initially, and then we may go on to more substantive matters. So feel free to raise your hand and to ask your question, or you may do it in the chat box on your right.
Yeah, Chairman, Dr. Walton.
Yes.
Let me congratulate Dr. Inachu. Maureen, thank you very much for this splendid work. I have a copy of your book by Futu to Salaga right before me with your compliments right in it. I think it's a splendid work. Maybe for starters, as Dr. Walton has said, there's a question of clarification, or maybe, yes. There is this photograph that you showed, and you said it's been mislabeled. What accounts for the mislabeling? What is it there? Because I couldn't see properly what is written on it.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you very much. The photograph you saw was mislabeled as David Asante. And I found that at one of the churches in Kukurantumi when I was around the churches. So, as you know, it's difficult to find the photograph of David Asante. So, but I told the pastor in charge that definitely was Silos Opoku, and they needed to relabel. They needed to relabel the photograph. Please, I left the meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, you are still here. It happens, Prof. Lai. In my own research, the subject being Prophet Samson Opon, I discovered that in one place, the photograph of Prophet William Gwede Harris had been used as his photograph, and I pointed it out to them. In fact, it had even been used as a bust. So there was an error there. Thank you. Yes, any other? Okay, no more clarifications, right? So if there are other substantive issues,
Yeah, so Dr. Walton, maybe I can just continue with maybe some questions of substance. Maureen, you talked about language. Professor Poku wrote articles that were published in the Christian Messenger, Christo, Force, and Kakafo. But I happen to know that these were mainly in Akan. Was Opoku proficient in German? Which other languages also did he have? And how did you navigate the issue of language? You didn't go into details, particularly handling Twi. And then also the diaries. In which language did he write his diaries? Those that are kept at the Yale Divinity School. And then also... Okay.
Have you finished?
Yeah, just a bit also about Ohohoni Manfreni. How did you handle that, your discovery of the fact that he didn't write that song against the popular notion, the popular narrative, which I believe is still going around, that he actually wrote this song. What is your comment on your discovery and what you found?
Okay, thank you very much. As I mentioned more than once in my presentation, I didn't have German, I didn't have Twi, but I knew that Opoku had written in German because some of his correspondence to the Basel Mission head office in Basel was in German. And I think I found one in German, but it was all German because I asked for help from Professor Wellington, who has German, who's bilingual. And it was in the old German, so I could not access that. As for the tree, Professor Laye, when I was doing my project essay, you so kindly gave me a copy of the Senke where Opoku had written. I had to have that translated. And I saw some other things also in Twi. There was a story of Opoku that was serialized in the Christian Messenger by Nicholas Clark. So I got my research assistant, Mr. Appenting, to have that translated for me. But as I also mentioned in my presentation, my focus really was on the English writings, because there I could interact with the material and I didn't really need to translate them anyway. So that's how I dealt with that. But he was a prolific writer in English anyway, because Professor Paul Jenkins and Professor Michel Gilbert, two scholars who have been writing and researching on Opoku, have been working on producing a compendium of his annual reports in English. And according to them, there are 35 of them. And I only got about a dozen or so. About the diaries, I heard so much talk about diaries, but I never saw them. And I never found anybody who actually had them. So maybe that's one thing that should come out of this week of seminars, that people who have access to archival materials can make them available so that other people can have access and study and write. So I heard about diaries, but I never saw them. I did see something that looked like maybe a page from that diary in the Christian Messenger. But it was not, I can't say the diaries were available to me. Finally, the Ohohone Manfreni, I was very curious to know also about the origin of that. In the second, I think the most recent hymn book of the Presbyterian Church, it is rightly annotated there that he translated the song. And I'm inclined to go with that because I decided to have the song, the hymn, back translated in English. I got my research assistant to do that. And it was amazing because the English was like exactly the same wording, the same structure, everything, with a hymn in English from, I think it was the 17th century. So I suspect that the Basel missionaries, the teachers had taught that song, that hymn. And when Opoku fell ill in Salaga, the hymn came back to him or was singing it and decided to translate it. And that is what I think happened, because nowhere else does it say that he wrote that song, but the words in English are practically the same as the words in that older hymn. So I hope that cleared the air for you.
Sure. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Maureen.
Yeah, but Dr. Maureen, you mentioned in your presentation that you discovered a diary somewhere in the United States. Or I heard you wrongly.
What I discovered at MAM, it was a session minutes, what's it called? Session minutes book. And at that time, Opoku was pastor at Mamfi, but also was supervising the congregation at Mampong. And they would write out the session, those were present, and what was discussed, the decision taken. And in a few of them, I saw Opoku's name as the pastor. But some of those pages, as I said, were missing. And I didn't have the opportunity to, follow the trail of thought or follow the way that the session meetings were run and the decisions were arrived at. I did not find his diary. I never saw his diary. I would like to see if you have it. Dr. Walton, please, if you could make it.
Hello. Dr. Murray, we didn't hear the latter part of your statement.
I'll say that I don't have any access to his diary, and if you do, please, I would be interested.
No, I do not. I thought I heard you wrongly then. Thank you very much for that explanation. Auntie KK has her hand up, I think so. The floor is for you, Miss Lai. Auntie KK? Oh, we probably have lost her. Okay. Yes, any other submissions or comments?
Maureen, I just want to say thank you for the great work you've done and for the presentation this morning. This is Joseph Jibi. So along the line, I discovered that I was a distant relative of Theophilus Opoku.
Okay.
So this was through a funeral, and you know how you trace your... So through my mom's side. So my mom actually bought the book, and also the book became very important to my dad. I'm not sure what exactly drew him to, but in his final days, your first book on Theophilus Opoku was one that he read frequently. So thank you for going through all that work to make it available. I have a few questions. Did Theophilus Opoku serve as a translation assistant to Christaller? And I don't know if there's any information on that. And then my second question, I'm not sure it's to you directly, but on the way archival material is treated in various churches, I think that it came up yesterday and today as well that a lot of these materials are being destroyed because the people who have access to them don't know the value of it. And I'm wondering whether, as an institution that is quite well placed in the country, we cannot start a movement to gather a lot of these. For instance, if the Presbyterian Church was to order all archival material to be sent to the Akrofi archives, and the Church of Pentecost could do same, wouldn't we be salvaging a lot of the material that might still be out there that we do not know of and may not have yet been destroyed? But as they keep expanding their churches and modifying the buildings, they feel like they need to dispose of this. So I think that's a question for the wider body. And also, as you spoke, my attention was drawn to Paul Grant made a presentation. Dr. Paul Grant made a presentation some time back, and he mentioned that there was some material, archival material at at the PCE that was discovered some time back. I don't know if you are familiar with that and whether you had any access to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. I think you've got to the end of your list of questions, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Okay, I'll start from the last one. Paul Grant said there are archival materials. I didn't get where they are, but I'm aware of that.
Okay.
I'm not aware of that. So you'd probably have to ask Dr. Grant to give a more specific indication of where they are and what they are.
Okay.
Opoku as assistant translator. This is my first time of hearing that, but I know he was part of the translation of the Bible. He was one of those who on the Bible, but I don't know about the translator. Maybe that was the role he played, but I've not had that specific piece of information come up. It's something worth pursuing, of course. As for how we treat archival materials, I was at a conference. I was invited to be part of a conference on African Christian biography in 2015, after my biography on Opoku was published. And in my contribution to the book that came out of that, I did raise the challenge of how we store archival materials. And I think you can do something. You don't have to wait for the church administration or leadership to do it. As you do your research, as you gather material, you can compile them. Yesterday, people were asking Jeremiah to donate or to lodge his archival materials and his research materials at ACI. Yes, that's to be encouraged. But then on the other hand, there's also at ACI what we do. What about our own material? How about the things we have generated? There are boxes and boxes of the Mission Conference materials, for instance. Where, hey, what are we doing with them? So I think the task is for every one of us. Every one of us. So we don't just leave it to the church leadership. There was a leadership in the early 19th century in the churches that I visited where, what they call old books have been chucked out, as you see, because they're building new churches, new manses, and there's no place for these books. It's such a tragedy because what's happening is that the church is losing part of its memory. The church is losing its identity because the church in Ghana, and specifically the Presbyterian Church, is not just of 50 years ago, 100 years ago. It started way back in the 19th century with the Basel Mission schools and seminaries and stations and congregations. So it saddens me when I think about such treasures that are being lost just because we want the newness. Many of the churches that I visited had their brochures, their, centenary. Whenever there was a big anniversary coming up, then they'd write a history. I did get some important information from some of those. But then the brochures are filled with photographs of the residents, of, the kinds of committees and what have you. So the more emphasis on the recent, on the now, and before, in the past, is just discarded. It's a pity. So what I'm saying is that we all can do something a little bit where we are. Now, I'm surprised you say you're related through your mother to Opoku. Have you been to Opoku's house? They're in Akrofi. Have you tried to engage with the descendants? Have you really asked your mother or whoever to tell the story, to trace the links backwards? I should do that because I'd really like to know that part of his story.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Maureen. I don't know whether Joseph has any response to that. Let me just quickly mention that many of the older churches have archives. I'm a Methodist, and I know we have a well-organized archive. The Church of Pentecost is, I think, in the process of building one. And so we want to encourage the younger churches. And I used to know that when supervising clergy visit the outstations, they would inspect some of the record books. I guess this is a practice maybe that is getting outmoded. It's no longer very much done. But we want to encourage ourselves in it. So for those many of us on this platform are church leaders, and we want to encourage our people to be careful about record keeping. Yeah, are there any other submissions, comments, and so on?
Reverend Dr. Walton, I would like to make a comment, please.
Let's do.
Yeah, Dr. Iheanacho, Maureen, thank you so much for sharing that and the way you did it, especially. First of all, before I make my main comment, I would just like to add to the point on sources and materials that even at SEI, we have a collection of material, literature in various forms, all in German, that have been untouched. In fact, some of it is just kept somewhere inaccessible. And I wonder whether there would be something relating or by or around the time of Opoku's, life and works. It's all in German, and I think because of lack of access, I was particularly interested because I had some access to the language, but nothing has been done to discover what lies under that heap. But my comment really, Maureen, is to rejoice and affirm what you've shared, especially the experience of researching. You spoke about the toil, the aches and pains, the strain, the discipline, the fears, the frustrations. And I can attest to all that. Mine had to also involve health issues, migraine, and so on. So I really attest to that. But I'm so glad that you ended towards the end of your presentation. You also spoke about the joys, the reward, the eureka moment, being part of the family. More and more, you said. And then you also spoke of how the research was personally rewarding experience, a privilege. And then you said, you used the phrase, and I didn't quite catch, not the full statement, but you made the point about the research being recognizably real and worthwhile. I just want to, in fact, I would like to indulge you a little bit. Maybe you've forgotten this, but the moments for me that were really, really rewarding in the ways that you have described were when I connected with the people I was researching on and the places. In my case, it was, as you know, Maureen, with Wole Soyinka, and also with going to Nigeria. 3 years into my research work, I hadn't been to Nigeria. I had only met Nigerians far away from Nigeria. And it's not until I went to Nigeria 3 years into my research that I really connected with the things I was learning and thinking about. So, and Maureen, here, if you just permit me very quickly, I would like to indulge you briefly on something that you're part of. I hope you can see this. So this is 2010. Let me just, it will be very brief. Just to affirm what you've said, hopefully I'll show you this time. So the toil, the hard work, and the meeting of the people and the places. So Maureen, I hope you can see that. This is when I actually connected with a person I was researching about. And Maureen, you are part of the journey. In fact, I would like to remind you, if you've forgotten, that when we were invited to this party, a huge party, at the high table with dignitaries, you are the one who encouraged me to go. And you asked me to pretend that I belonged when I expressed that I really didn't belong to that place. You said, act as if you belong. So just to indulge you on that breakthrough, moments of eureka and moments of joy. And just to say that it is true, hard work pays, and the work we do is rewarding, no matter how painful it can be. So just to say thank you for sharing that. That's all.
Thank you, Abraham. Thank you so much. And I'm glad that, you followed the suggestion, and it led you to where it led you. I'm grateful to have been a small part of that.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Raymond has his hand up. Raymond, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman and Dr. Ehianacho. Considering the difficulties you had to go through to produce this work, and for purposes of people identifying what materials are good for biographies and storage in archives and the rest, would you want to let us know what personally motivated you to choose Theophilus Opoku as the one to research on? Thank you.
Okay, as I did say in my presentation that I didn't set out to write a biography of Theophilus Opoku. It was all incidental. First of all, I was at the Yale Divinity School Library, 2007, helping a senior colleague to get archival materials. And I was supposed to be looking out for those in English. And I did. But then I noticed that there were quite a few in English written by this Theophilus Opoku. And, I think too much about it. And 2 years later, I registered to do the MA in Theology and Mission program at ACI. And there was the fourth module, which was project essay. And I didn't have anything to write. I didn't have a topic. Professor Laye, maybe you remember my predicament at the time.
Yes,
and,
yes.
Yes, people didn't believe me that I didn't have a topic. So we were supposed to meet with Professor Laye at 2:00 that afternoon, and I'd gone for lunch. And I was desperately praying in my kitchen, Lord, I don't have a topic. What am I going to write? And then suddenly, it came to me, Theophilus Opoku, and I said, what's Theophilus Opoku? And not Theophilus Opoku as a missionary, theologian, native pastor, or something like that. And of course, when I wrote everything down frantically, left my washing up, and I took that to the meeting. And I gave it to, I presented that. Everything was okay until we had to face a panel of senior scholars to look at our topics. And to my greatest surprise, was accepted, except that I was asked to change the term native. So I changed that to indigenous. So that's how I came about Theophilus Opoku. I did not set out to write his biography, but with the reports I read, there's something about his writing that's so fascinating. I mean, it just brings everything to life. I could imagine those things he was describing, and so forth and so on. So I found him a really fascinating subject. And I will continue to write about him because there are reports that I got that I'm yet to transcribe. And I hope I will be able to do that. For instance, I was talking about personal details. More recently, I read one of his reports where his son had died And the grief he expressed in the report and the mourning, and he felt partly responsible because he had sent his son to Accra to learn a trade because apparently he was not doing well in school. He was probably not gifted in the other area. So he accepted to send his son to faraway Accra and put him under the tutelage of Reverend Randolph. I mean, it's another story for another day. So that's what happened. I stumbled onto Opoku, and somehow he's been leading me, following after him. I hope that addresses your query.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you, Dr. Maury. Inspiration comes from all kinds of angles. And I want to remember that you did say you were praying desperately because you didn't have a topic. And we remind ourselves that this is a Christian enterprise. And as our devotion this morning, we're doing all this to the glory of Christ. So this is part of the gamut. Thank you. Reverend Hansen, your hand is up.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. In fact, I want to add my voice to commend our presenters yesterday, Jeremiah, and this morning, Maureen. It's been very refreshing, and even as they presented, at the point you get emotional. And as Dr. Settle said, it's a story of people, real people, pioneers of faith. And we thank God that they were led to write that. As they made a presentation, I realized that it's really God directed. Because yesterday we heard about a dream that led to the writing on one person, and today we've heard about a conviction of God also leading to write on another person. I love history, so when I read it makes me happy. But I just wanted to make 2 quick points. That is a motivation for maybe those of us who are starting new ministries, that one day the others will come and write about us. But I also want to put it to our big men, our leaders, those who are leading us, whether they've also written their biographies. Because I noticed that Opoku's biography really was a very big contribution to this work. He had something that he had documented, and therefore when Maureen picked it, the work was easier. So Dr. Walton and all our big men at Akrofi-Christaller, I hope you are writing your biographies for us. Thank you.
May I just say that you don't look to others. Remember what Jesus told John told Peter about John? What is it to you what I do with him? So I think you need to, as we were told yesterday, begin to keep a diary. If you don't, put your papers where people can find, where you yourself can write your autobiography. I think we have this thing about our leaders always setting the pace, doing it, then we'll follow. But we can also set the example. There's no law against that. So I think while you expect the leaders of the churches, the big men, to write about themselves or put materials aside for you to write about them, you can also think about who will write your story after you if you don't write it now, and make the materials available and begin to gather, just like someone did for David. Just like David did for Solomon. You gather materials, put things together, put things in place, and then let them go on from there. That's what I think I would respond to that. It's not always about our leaders doing whatever it is. We could also start, and then they follow from us.
So the challenge is to all of us. All right, Reverend Ahiabu.
Yes, please. Good morning to all.
Morning.
Yeah, Dr. Maureen, I'm very excited about the insights you are sharing and you have just shared, and then the motivation it has also given to me. Particularly, I've been interested in looking at things from practical point of view. So always on research, I want to go to field. I want to see what is happening there. And I love using video. Now that you have researched somebody who is dead and gone long time ago, have you had the opportunity of viewing him live speaking through video and then feeling how he was feeling whilst talking, or you only encountered him in his write-up?
A video of him. I don't think the video had been invented when he was alive. He died in 1915. And if there was video then, there was no access. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So thank you for your remarks. But maybe I can say now that it's perhaps more challenging to write a biography of a living person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because
very.
there are so many things involved. One is getting the person to actually say something or share the information they have, because it's like the material is alive, is living and evolving. And they may interfere with what you want to say about them. They have to tell you what kind of biography they want. And it must be authorized. You know, they have to do the go ahead. So that can be more complicated. So I suppose I've been more fortunate in that I'm searching somebody who's come lived and on. But as his descendant says, I brought him back to life. So I'm just so grateful to God for all that.
We thank God.
Yeah, but Dr. Maureen had access to some photographs, so that at least gave a feel of how he looked like and so on.
Yes. I saw those ones. Thank you so much.
You too. Back to the discussion on the keeping of archives, records, and so on. I know some years back, Akrofi collaborated, I think, with Challenge Enterprises, and something was organized in Rich Church. I wasn't part of that meeting, but I know Rector was there. Rector, can you share with us some of the things that you did on that occasion? Hello, Rector. Lost it.
Yes, in the moment. In fact, we have a backup, so I'm now on my phone. But you are right. It was actually through Maureen and Professor that we got Martha Smalley to visit and to take part in the doctoral seminar. But we also organized, seminars or workshops for the larger Christian community and for the PCG specifically, all on archives. And I think that the message went out loud and clear to the PCG. I mean, it went all the way to the General Assembly, encouraging all, the congregations, ministers, and so on to help us in retrieving archival materials and encouraging them to also lodge whatever brochures and so on they produce with us at ACI. Some have been doing that. Unfortunately, I would say most have not. And I guess we need to keep reminding them about these things. And yes, the wider community got involved with the REACH program. It was in April that year. And I think it went well. But yeah. Since I'm on the floor, let me take the opportunity to say thank you very much to Maureen for sharing. As has been acknowledged, it's been very exciting and extremely encouraging to all of us. Thank you very much, Maureen.
Thank you, Professor Kwashi. I'm glad I heard your voice today. Thank you. But let me put you a little on the spot and be yourself. You are going to organize those seminars on how to keep archives in the various presbyteries. Is that still in the pipeline? Are you still planning to do that? I know 2020 was so disrupted by the pandemic, but now that things are calming down.
We actually did a few programs, even at lower levels than, as I recall, the presbytery. But those other presbyteries has been really outstanding. But we can pick up on our continued education activities. Yeah. And I'm sure Dean has taken note.
Thank you.
Try and pursue that. Because I think we have enough resource persons to be able to do that. We still have actually some of the brochures we produced one matter was in town. Yeah.
Okay. Right. That's wonderful. So as the physician healed thyself, remember your own materials at ACI that may need organizing.
Yeah.
Well, that has been ongoing actually. I would say most of the work has been done by Rubin and Co. So that progress has been made on that one for sure. Thank you.
Yes, when I last visited in January last year, I saw a listing of materials that had come. Yes, they're doing a good job. But it's just that over the years, there's so much that has been generated by ACI through the programs that they might need help. Maybe another pair or two pairs of hands to accelerate the process. But anyways, well done.
Yeah, thank you. Sir Rubin, can you give us an idea of the state of the ACI archives now in terms of the materials that have come in from BCG and possibly other sources, if you are around? I see a number of ICT entries. I don't know whether Sir Rubin, you are one of them. No, that's not to you. That's to the head of our archives, the ACI archives unit. It's not around. Okay, Auntie Mary, do you have any idea? Sorry. Prof. Lai, you wanted to respond?
Yes. Well, as the director has said, Rubin and his assistant has been doing quite a lot of job. And as Maureen has said, they need support. They need, because it's huge, having to assemble all these materials and then classify them and all that. It's quite a huge lot of work. They've actually produced the finding aid on the Frimamu and then the Presbyterian Church of Ghana archives. They are working from, one institution to the other and individuals. And then also we need to do a rehabilitation of some of the documents because some of them are very weak. The state in which we collect them, they're almost tearing apart. And we need special kind of technology to be able to preserve them. And it's quite expensive. But the library committee has been working at this. Gradually, we hope that we can get there. We've also acquired a microfiche reader. We are hoping to get a printer attached to it. At the time that Maureen did her research, we had the old microfiche, microfilm reader. We didn't have the printer. We couldn't get the printer. It was so frustrating. But now we have the latest technology of the reader, the microfiche, microfilm reader. What we left with is the printer, and we're working at it to get it. So it should be a bit more easier, working through some of these old documents. But just, before I let Maureen off, something that she said, the suspicion that you've been pocketing monies from your work. Families that come at you and come at us. But I've had my fair share of it. And generally, even the institutes. There was some time when the family came asking that they be giving collections that we have done some years back because they suspect that we've been using these things and then we've been pocketing the money. Now that's real, very real. Maureen, you just said that in passing, but I don't know how, you're able to handle this, especially when people come at you again.
Well, so far it's really that one experience early on in 2013. And I wrote what I told her, and she said I was taking advantage of the fame of Theophilus Opoku, writing about him and making money. Of course, the connotation was I was Nigerian and, making profit. And I told her, his fame depends on what you know and if people know about him. And I was bold enough to tell her I was rather doing them a big favor by making him know. But she was the lone voice. And as I said also later on in the paper, when I went back to interview her, she was all gracious and generous and kind. And she had a copy of the biography and she was so very grateful. But that's just the lone voice. But I think I would say those who probably have more clout than her in the Opoku Asifo are very grateful. And I've written about the comments, other comments, but you can't put everything in a paper like this. So that makes up for the remarks that descendant made. But I haven't had any other things. Of course, people buying books, they want you to give it out free, especially Christians. They don't want to pay for books. So I'll see what happens later today when we talk about publishing books. Christians don't want to pay for books. So that first publication of mine, one on the ministry and mission of Opoku, it's been 5 CDs forever, but people still want to get it free. So I don't know. So that's what I would say. There will always be the suspicion. Somebody thinking you're making so much money, you're rich. The biography, for instance, I never received royalties from the publisher, not one person. Rather, I gave her the monies from the sales I made. So how about that? The third one I did, again, Dr. Walton, you talked about there. I was going to do a launch, and the doors were shutting in my face at a venue. I couldn't get this, I couldn't get that. And thank God for discerning friends. It was Brother Howell who said, how about education? Maybe the Lord doesn't want all that unfair. And she was proved right. And it was moving, so memorable, so touching, the dedication. And I'm just so glad that God gave his directions and gave me the grace to follow them. So the suspicion will always be there, but then what do? We carry on.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maureen, and for your lecture, for all the submissions and all that has been said. Oh, I lost my connection.
Dr. Watson, if I may, please, before you end this session, I'd want to really acknowledge the technical support I got from Dr. Rudolph Gazy. In fact, without his efforts, we wouldn't be having this presentation. As you saw, I had to record my presentation and send him. and he fitted in the slides. So I owe him a huge debt of gratitude. Rudolph, if you're there, thank you so, so very much.
Oh, Maureen, you're welcome.
Okay.
Be quiet, but you fooled me, so you're most welcome. And I enjoyed the presentation and the encouragement.
Thank
right.
you.
Dr. Hannah Cho, on behalf of Dr. Walton, who I think got disconnected briefly, want to bring this particular session to a close. Thank you for your presentation and for all those who have contributed to the discussion. So at this time, I want to break, and then we will resume.
I think Professor Waltz is on. You may want to say something, Professor Waltz.
Oh, Professor Waltz is on. Oh, no.
Yes. Hi, Prof.
I didn't notice. Was Dr. Waltz?
He's muted and he's speaking.
Yeah,
okay.
Prof.
He's now unmuted. He's unmuted.
Prof. Waltz, please share with us anything you want to add. I'll just give your greetings.
Well, may I just greet you all. It's a great delight to be with you for a time. I'm sorry I'm late, and I've obviously missed something valuable. But I hope to pick up in the course of the course of time.
Well, thank you so much. It's always
Thank
good
you, Prof. Nice
to hear from you.
Wonderful to be here again.
And very grateful that you are able to join us, however briefly. So
Ingrid is round the corner here.
Oh.
You can't see her probably, but she's here and listening.
Yes,
right.
I'm here on the side.
You are very welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hi, Ingrid.
Hey, Maureen, we'll catch up your paper later.
Perhaps we'll get to hear more from you later.
Okie dokie.
Right. So once again, thank you all for your participation this morning. We want to take a break here so that we can stretch ourselves, and we'll resume at 11:20. So thank you so much, and we'll break from here.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Settles.
Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you. Thank you, Koklu. Waiting for your paper.
You know. Okay. Going to prepare.
Hear you later.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Hi, Prof. Great to see you here.
Korklu is greeting you, Andrew. Korklu has just greeted you. Korklu. Yes, has just greeted you.
There.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I just can't get her image up yet, but she just greeted you, so you may want to greet back.
Well,
you can't see her, but she greeted you.
No, I was talking to the person who spoke.
Great to see you both. Great to see everybody. Now I have to go and prepare for my session. See you later.
Yes, I'm waiting to hear you, Koklu.
Hey, Maria, frightening you.
I know you won't disappoint. I know.
The Lord will be my help.
I'm trying to get the gallery too, so we can everybody, but I can't do that yet.
Yeah, but I think most people don't have their camera on.
Oh.
Yeah, most people don't have their camera on. But if you want to put the gallery view, if you go to the lower right of your screen.
Lower right?
Yes, next to the button that says present now,
Yes.
you see there's 3 small buttons
Yes.
in a vertical column. If you click that,
Yes.
it will bring up a menu where you can change the layout.
Right. So change layout.
You can change it to tiled instead of spotlight. Yes.
Okay, got it.
And it will bring up all the people who are in the. You'll see the names of everyone in a format like that.
Got it. And then you just click off the screen, right?
Yes, with the X, you can. Yes.
There we go. Right. So
I don't know if I'm visible.
You are visible. We see you.
You know, because the window is behind you, your face is in darkness. So you need to sit.
Well, I'm dark. I'm dark, Maureen. I'm dark.
There you go. That's better.
Now you're
a little more to your right.
That's very good.
That's wonderful. Okay.
That's it.
That's
now we can.
Oh, Koklo, it is you.
That's great. So
I can't see you.
Oh.
Maureen, I can't see you.
Hey, I'm off. You can't see me. You have to be anointed to see me. Super anointed.
Okay, I'm going for my anointing. I'll be back.
I'm going for my anointing so I can hear you well. Catch you later.
Yes. Bye for the moment.
All right.
Prof. Walls and Ingrid, I hope you are keeping well.
Yeah. Yes, we're hanging in here by God's grace.
Yeah, very well.
Yeah, hi Joshua.
How
and I
are
hear
you?
Abraham. I don't see him. I owe you an email, Joshua. I'm just trying to catch up with email. So hopefully I'll write you soon.
You owe me an email. Am I in trouble?
No, you sent me an email about something that's coming up sometime soon on arts and literature and religion.
The Theology and Arts Symposium.
Yeah.
Yes.
I intended to reply, but I haven't gotten around to it. So hopefully soon.
It's coming up in May, so maybe you can just pencil it on your calendar.
Yeah, indeed. Right. Hi, Auntie Mary.
We haven't actually assigned you to do anything in
Yes, I noticed that. I was quite struck by it, actually.
Oh, really? You want an assignment? I can certainly give you one.
Oh, no, thank you. I don't want an assignment.
Of course she does. Yes, of course she does.
Yes, I agree with you, Prof. Walls.
You can't go by what he says because he can't speak for me. But anyway, I think it's better if I'm on this side.
It would be wonderful if you were able to participate in any way beyond just logging in, though.
Right. Okie dokie.
But perhaps we can have a conversation rather than going back and forth on email. Sometimes that's easier to do.
I think so. I think that's better for me, actually, because I have too many emails in my box and it's hard to catch up all the time.
Sometimes I find myself seeing how long I can go to ignore certain emails before they start being irrelevant.
I don't try to ignore any of them. It's just that I have so many of them.
Yeah, the same. I don't try to ignore them, but it ends up happening.
Well,
I keep telling myself, I need to answer this email. I need to answer this email, and by the time I get around, my answer is irrelevant.
Well, the thing just that I think we tend to move a bit slower these days, and
sure.
So I think that's a big factor. We just don't have the same energy level, so we just tend to move slower and get the things.
Sure.
So I tend to ignore emails over 3 years old.
That's a good. I think that's a good rule of thumb.
But he can do that because he's who he is, you see.
That's true. Well, I think if after 3 years it's really important, then they'll send another email. That's what I figure.
Yeah, that's they haven't had their home call since then.
Yes, Abraham.
Just by the way, it just occurred to me during the inauguration of the Chancellor at Akrofi.
Yes.
2 years ago now. Prof Woss gave a talk, and the gist of that talk was that God is the first artist.
Oh.
And it just occurred to me that such a talk, I'm not sure it's published or it's been recorded anywhere, but it just occurred to me that it could be very useful for the symposium.
Oh, wow. I didn't recall that. I mean, of course, I was at the installation, but I hadn't recalled that particular address. That's interesting.
It was not a full address. It was
more remarks.
Yeah, remarks. Yeah, but
yes.
that was the gist of it, as far as I can remember.
By the way, Abraham, I had a chance to meet William. Yes,
nice.
Yes, he's a remarkable man.
Absolutely,
we had quite a good time together. I got to see his studio and what he's working on at is it Abosomasi or so, and then he came here to see the place where he would display the art and everything. So it was quite a good time together.
Oh, Joshua, I'm so glad you did that.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
So thank you very much for the recommendation. I think he's excited about it, and I found out, and a good Hansen Akrofi-Ansa is here. I found out that Hansen is his pastor.
Oh, is that so?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So he actually mentioned my name, and Hansen said, "Oh, yes, Dr. Sethos is one of my supervisors."
Yes.
Small world.
Yes, Hansen.
Yes. So we are keenly looking forward to it.
Yes, I told William now that whether Hansen likes it or not, he has no choice but to come to the symposium. His supervisor is running it, and one of his church members is presenting, so he has to be there.
I'm there.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, Reverend Ansa. Hey, how are you doing?
By God's grace.
Thank God. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Okay.
So Ingrid and Prof, are you staying on for the rest of the sessions?
Yes, we are.
Oh, good.
We may be in and out a little, but
oh, sure. That'd be great.
Hope to get a good proportion. Anyway,
are you for the entire session yourself?
I am. Yes, I've consecrated these 2 days. It's 3 days.
All right.
Yeah.
I like your choice of language there, Abraham. You've consecrated these days.
I may not be consecrated myself, but I have consecrated.
At least the day is set aside as holy, even if the person is not.
That's right.
Sister Ingrid, when are your usual good days to meet?
Usually towards the end.
Does it vary?
Thursday
towards
or
the end of the week.
Yeah,
Thursday and Fridays are better. Okay.
Yes.
And morning or afternoon, which is better for you usually?
Afternoons are better for me.
Afternoons are better for you.
Yes.
What if we? Oh, next week that's Easter week, so that's not possible. But Thursday. What about next week, Thursday, the 1st?
Next week, Thursday. Yeah, that's fine.
Yes. If that's okay, then perhaps we can just chat We'll video call and then just talk about the symposium and catch up on any other matters.
Right. Sounds good. Thank you, Josh.
So, can I send you the link? Will you read that email at least? I'll set up a meeting and then send you the link, and then we can just do that.
Okay,
that's okay with you.
Thank you.
Okay.
That should work. Yeah.
So sometimes it's easier to strike while the iron is hot or something like that.
Yeah. So just strike while we're both on the internet at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just drink the Coca while it's still hot.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
There we go. There could be a whole lot more to come.
That's an African.
Oh no, I don't know what I'm doing.
Which email should I use?
You can use the Gmail account. That's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And is 1 o'clock okay?
1 o'clock. Yeah, that's pretty good actually.
All right. So I've done that.
Okay. So that's the 1st of April at 1 o'clock.
Yep. 1st of April at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. I've set it up, and we can just catch up then.
Okie doke. Thanks a lot, Joshua.
Yeah, no problem.
Now I'm trying to get out of the screen. What is this?
What are you trying to do?
I don't know. What at 1 o'clock?
Yep, 1st of April at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. I've set it up, and we can just catch up then.
Okie doke. Thanks a lot, Joshua.
Yeah, no problem.
Now I'm trying to get out of the screen. What is this?